Good morning. Our program will begin in 5 minutes. Welcome to the opening general session sponsored by Thales Alenia Space. Please welcome Satellite Executive Chairman Jeffrey Hill.
To everyone in this room and the almost 15,000 people from all over the world who have traveled to be here with us in Washington, D.C., we welcome you to Satellite 2024, the world's largest and longest running celebration of satellite technology and innovation in orbit. This year's event, I'm happy to report, hosts the largest number of attendees and exhibitors in the show's 43-year history. In just 4 years after having to close our doors early due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have broken our attendance record 2 years in a row. Satellite has experienced growth that is uncommon among tech trade shows, most of which are still working to get back to their pre-COVID attendance. For the past 3 years, more than a third of our total attendees are first-time attendees or completely new to the industry. We've had the good fortune of welcoming a wave of new attendees from the larger telecommunications industries, from other tech sectors, from global government, and from end-user markets such as energy, agriculture, transportation, and healthcare. If we ask ourselves, why is our community at Satellite growing and thriving, we need only to read the news. Satellite technology is our window into the world. It's showing us world-changing events happening in real time. It's connecting stories between people from everywhere on the planet. With the push of a button on a smartphone, satellites are now saving lives in crisis. Satellites have been connecting people for decades, so what's changed? Well, satellite networks are now no longer exclusive to special use cases in extreme remote environments. They are now integrated with cellular networks. Over-the-counter iPhones and Android smartphones can now connect directly to satellites. Ground systems and antennas have never been smaller, cheaper, more powerful, or more adaptive, and they continue to evolve. Satellite technology has progressed to the point where most end users don't even have to think about it, see it, or even interact with it. You do not have to be an engineer to understand how satellites work. They just have to work. The satellite team and I are so grateful to have all of you here with us to be a part of the events happening over the next few days. This is a community, and we want you to feel a part of it. We hope your experience this week compels you to return to us next year to continue these discussions and our mission to connect the world. This morning's events include our amazing opening general session panel, How Industry Leaders Are Investing in Growth, followed by the opening of our 90,000 plus square foot exhibit hall floor. But it all begins with a keynote fireside chat about a satellite service that truly symbolizes how powerful connectivity from space has become over the last decade. Today's travelers no longer view in-flight connectivity services as a luxury. Connectivity is now expected as passengers watch 4K movies, post videos to social media, play multiplayer online video games from the comfort of their seats 40,000 feet above the Earth. To explain how recent developments in satellite technology make all of this possible and how in-flight connectivity services will evolve to enhance the overall travel experience, we are joined by two very special guest speakers, Glen, Managing Director of In-Flight Entertainment and Connectivity for one of the largest commercial airlines in the world, Delta Airlines, and Paul Gaske, COO of Hughes, an Echostar subsidiary providing end-to-end connectivity services and solutions to millions of customers, businesses, government. Intro. Here we are 4 or 5 years past the onset of COVID, and people are traveling again. And business is good. We've seen a significant spike in air travel these past few years, and people are eager to get back to vacationing. How has Delta's passenger connectivity needs and expectations changed over this time?
So great question. And first of all, we're excited that everyone is traveling again and that we all get to collaborate in person here at the show. So Delta has been a leader in IFEC for a long period of time. And in order to continue to do that, we need to do exactly what you said. It's got to work. It's got to work all the time. And what we learned during COVID was the expectation for connectivity was no longer optional. And the services that we use with connectivity, even though it's in the air, need to replicate what we do on the ground. And it really, we look at it from three dimensions. There's the passenger piece, which we must deliver on. And then from an airline perspective, it's very difficult to do this, as you said, at 30,000 feet, flying 500 miles an hour, pointing at a satellite, and if you're off half a degree, nobody gets internet. So we've got to insulate that from the customer to make sure that we can do that and do that well. And that requires picking the right technology for today's internet expectation and predicting what that's going to look like over time. And it's also about picking the right partner in order to do that with, because this is a cycle of continuous innovation. And we're very fortunate to have Viasat as a partner, free internet on 700 aircraft, very collaborative relationship. We work problems together, and we now have the same thing with Hughes, working together, solving the problems, and delivering to meet the expectations.
Right. And for those of you who do not know Glen, Glen is a satellite guy, right? You're from the satellite industry. You work at an airline. When we were backstage, I mean, you'd worked with all of these CEOs and partners before. You know the technology. From this perspective, how do you calculate how much bandwidth a passenger jet needs for modern connectivity needs? How do you look at that and make that calculation?
Yeah, so that's a very tough challenge given the scale of Delta, right?
Right.
And given the magnitude of the network dynamics. So what we do is we have a predictive model in collaboration with our partner. And we look at, average usage on a per aircraft, but you also have to look at the peak demand. And then a new dynamic for us is the fact that this is a logged in experience with partnerships, like with Paramount Plus. We have to look in advance as to how many people are going to do that, how many people are going to take advantage of those partnerships to use that extra bandwidth to put it in the model with our partner and make sure that we can meet the peak demand.
Excellent. Paul, thank you so much for being here from the service provider side. To meet the demands as Glen has outlined for us in his calculations, Hughes, you signed a big contract with Delta this past November that I mentioned before. You're going to equip 400 regional jets with the Hughes Inflight management system, multi-orbit antennas, the Hughes Jupiter Ka-band satellite connectivity system. I have some questions about the contract, but first, let's watch the video that you put out when you made the announcement of the contract. Can we play that, please?
From the company that invented satellite internet comes Hughes in-flight connectivity, our reliable, high-performance Wi-Fi solution powered by weight-optimized, innovative technology and high-speed satellite assets.
We are proud to announce that Delta Airlines has selected the Hughes in-flight connectivity solution to power its passenger Wi-Fi experience on more than 400 regional jets in North America. Passengers expect a frictionless Wi-Fi experience wherever they are, including in the air. We are excited to enable Delta to elevate the in-flight experience. On behalf of all of us here at Hughes, welcome aboard, Delta.
Welcome aboard, Delta.
Welcome aboard, Delta.
Welcome aboard, Delta.
Welcome aboard, Delta. Welcome aboard, Delta.
All right. Well, congratulations to both of you on that partnership. So, Paul, why was Hughes a good fit for Delta in this? How did the partnership come to be?
Well, first I might mention, I think our first team meeting was 2 years ago with this
Here.
at the satellite show here. So it had a good venue. Let's start with that.
Oh, thank you. I did not pay him to say that.
Okay, but you can.
Okay.
Okay. But no, I would say first off, our experience in aviation has been long, maybe not as well known, but probably our biggest first thing was working with Glen when he had live TV. So that was live television into a commercial aircraft. We provided the video decoders for that. So we had a lot of activity there. And funny, I discovered the other day, I forgot about something we had done years ago. It used to have armrest handsets that people would call. And we actually built the phones for Claricom. So that was actually our first project. But then subsequently, a company called Row 44 at the time came to us about broadband to aviation. Their concept was to go direct to device as opposed to the headrests. And so we provided our Jupiter system to them. And Row 44 subsequently became Anuvu. I think people know them. And then, we've had many good partners since then that we support with our broadband technology. So we thought, we might have just the right assets for what Delta was asking about, in particular for these regional jets. So we put our best team together to talk to Glen and his team, who are outstanding people. We really can't tell you how much a joy it is to work with them. They're so professional. They know so much, and it's such a great help to us.
Now, Paul, yesterday, David Waisgrass from Intelsat said, the in-flight market is very competitive, a lot of great companies involved, and there's a lot of business to go around. I asked Glen the question when he came out here, but how do you see in-flight, the demand for in-flight services over the next few years, and how is Hughes preparing for that demand?
Well, if I chase it all the way back to the little handsets, those were 3 kilobit per second voice channels. So that's, going back 30 years or something. The broadband space started as kilobits, and now it's many, many megabits in the aircraft for passengers. So, the demand has just been growing and growing. I think the big driver more recently, of course, is the video. But I think if you go forward, you can just see that's going to continue as more and more people actually avail themselves of that capability in the aircraft. The take rates are going to continue to climb through the roof, especially if you think generationally, younger people tend to want to be more connected.
And Glen, you mentioned this a little bit when you talked about how you calculate your needs for the aircraft and when you're looking for a partner. But what do you look for in that partner, and when did you know that Hughes was going to be one of your partners? How did you make that calculation?
So one of the things that we do is look for the right technology for the right aircraft.
Okay.
And in this case, there's a picture of our test aircraft there. We needed a system that could provide the same level of passenger experience, but in a smaller package. And so when we looked at Hughes, we looked at the fact that they had a network that could deliver the demand now, and they had a good roadmap over time. We looked at the aircraft system, and the aircraft system was good, but it did not meet all our requirements. So another element that we look for in terms of our relationship is to truly have a partnership. And so we came to Hughes with some very difficult requirements in terms of weight for that particular platform, and we innovated that together, and then we ultimately tested it on one of our aircraft.
And what are your expectations of the service that you've just acquired from Hughes? Like, what are those expectations?
So when you think about a regional aircraft today, or our 717 fleet, which Hughes is going to outfit with this new technology, it has an air-to-ground system with very limited bandwidth. So you only get connectivity at altitude, and you have a 90-minute experience, and you get a small portion of that, and you're not able to stream or use it like you would a traditional internet at home. So we expect this experience to be just like the experience we offer on our mainline aircraft, but in a smaller package to support the constraints of our regional and 717 fleet.
And if Hughes exceeds expectations, do you expect this partnership to grow? And in general, for like satellite operators, is this a healthy business for growth? Are we going to expect more from the airlines?
Well, our desire for internet and capacity is virtually insatiable over time. So yes, absolutely. We expect to need more bandwidth as we go forward.
So Paul, you and your company, you've been on the cutting edge of satellite technology for some time, long company history. From your perspective, and in not just in-flight, but in mobile services, mobile satellite services, how are mobile satellite connectivity solutions on the solution side evolving? And is that evolution creating more opportunities for the satellite industry as a whole in the mobile markets?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at it today, there's really 3 orbits to work with. That we used to be just one, a geosynchronous orbit. Now you have a LEO orbit and you have a MEO orbit. So for us, the evolution is how do you blend those orbits together? How do you bring services that are tailored to the requirement of the particular passenger set, and how do you do that? So in our case, we have our Jupiter fleet, which is a GEO fleet. We have a great partner in OneWeb, where we provide the ground system and terminals to them and their customers, and we also have operated on SES's mPOWER. So we have the ability through our technology to operate on all the 3 platforms. So we think that as time goes on, you'll see more and more of that blending. We have a technology which we have today in our consumer and enterprise market called Fusion, which actually is an intelligent technology that allows us to pick the best route across the 3 planes, the 3 orbits, for a given piece of traffic. So we think all of that comes together over time here to increase the passenger experience for the ultimate broadband connection, as Delta is trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And Glenn, I'll ask you the same question. You being well-versed in satellite technology, I mean, multi-orbit seems to be the theme of the show. Like, how do you see mobile connectivity services evolving, not just in in-flight, but in all mobile services? Is it multi-orbit? Is multi-orbit really the game changer?
So, you know, if you ask, is low latency better than high latency? You know, that's an easy answer. Mm-hmm. But I think you've got to look at the holistic experience and make sure, you know, in all phases of flight and all aspects of use of the internet, can you still truly deliver your designed experience? And I think that's the challenge, is to look at those options and to blend and combine and deliver.
Excellent. So let's educate the satellite industry a little bit more about the business within the plane once you've acquired this connectivity. Glenn, how does Delta measure the value of connectivity as a business within the in-flight experience?
So it's really about brand loyalty.
Right.
And it's about making sure that we deliver to our customers to meet the expectations, right? The post-COVID and beyond, to meet those expectations. So it is a logged-in experience through SkyMiles that is working very well for us. We've got 2 million additional SkyMiles members as a result of launching free Wi-Fi. And so it is centered around brand loyalty, but also around our partnerships by giving opportunities to our customers to experience opportunities with our partners and expand our relationship with them over time.
And so, you know, Delta continues to lead the market by offering free Wi-Fi, now a personalized connectivity experience. So building off that, what's next for Delta in terms of your offering?
So one of the things that we've started launching, we have about 180 aircraft outfitted, is making the in-flight entertainment experience a smart experience, much like your smart TV at home. Delta has over 150,000 in-seat screens. So that's I'll call it the large screen on the plane, the screen in the seat back for us to have entertainment with. And so what we're doing is we're leveraging the foundation of reliable, always available Wi-Fi to personalize the IFE experience so that we can integrate that into a personal relationship with our customers. So you can have recommendations about what you want to watch. You can pick up a movie from where you left off on your next flight. We can tell you information about your flight. So it's really about leveraging Wi-Fi to create an immersive in-flight entertainment and connected experience. Excellent.
Excellent. Paul, as a service provider to companies like Delta who are offering these types of complex services, you know, Hughes isn't a stranger to satellite connectivity under the aero markets, but what made Hughes shift from a technology provider to, in this case, a direct service provider? And how is Hughes adapting to these new needs as a business?
Well, first, we've had excellent relations with a number of in-flight partners. We still continue to support them, and certainly they're all in their own spaces in market. But I think one of the things we looked at was the number of technologies that we have and the actual assets that we have lined up extremely well with what Glen and his team were looking for. We have, as I mentioned, the 3-orbit capability, but also under the hood, we've been operating millions of subscribers in broadband for a number of years on satellite. So we have a lot of traffic management and traffic management capabilities. In particular, we have a capability called AI Ops, which attempts to anticipate problems in the network, problems for a user, and then have us rapidly adapt. So we have these technologies we thought we could bring to bear, with our engineering teams and our operation teams that we thought could perhaps help Delta with their connected experience.
Excellent, excellent. Now going back to the partnership, excuse me, how is that progressing with the contract that you had just signed? What's the rollout process? How is that going? And maybe what's in the future for this particular partnership?
Well, it's going extraordinarily well. We couldn't have picked a better partner to take our first foray into going direct to the aircraft. Delta has all these professionals, tremendous experience. I don't think, if you go back to Glen and his team, go back a long time. So we combine that with our engineers that have been doing broadband similarly for a long time, and their support to our team has just been fabulous. And they bring so much knowledge and capability. It really is a great partnership.
Excellent. And Glen, from your perspective, how's the rollout going? And also, can you provide some maybe hints to the satellite community about what Delta might be expecting next from our industry?
So I think what we're expecting next is what you kicked us off with today, is it's no longer optional. This is a requirement, and it has to be available, it has to be reliable. It also has to be scalable, because although we do modeling and we do predictions as to what we think we're going to need going forward, we don't know all the new applications that are going to come out and what we all are going to want to do in the aircraft. So it's looking forward to make sure that the networks, the satellite networks that you have in place, are scalable to meet that demand as it comes.
Excellent. All right, so we've got a few minutes left here, and before we go, let's make some predictions, the forecasts outside of this this particular partnership. What's the future of the in-flight connectivity market? What are some things that you expect to happen that will be good? What are some challenges that you maybe see in the future? Glen, I'll start with you, and Paul, then you can follow up.
So I'll start with a challenge. When you think of the ecosystem and the complexity of doing a modification on the aircraft, in the home market, right, you can change your cell phone every couple of years, you can change your cable modem. The system on the aircraft, we want to be in service for a long period of time. So it's working with the providers in the industry to make sure that we minimize any change to that aircraft ecosystem and have the changes for scalability and support be outside that. That's absolutely something that we need to focus on going forward.
Excellent. Paul, predictions?
Well, I think it's the connected consumer that's going to drive things. If you hear Glen talk about the capacity requirements, those are going to continue just to grow and grow. But I think also there's the application layer that's just starting to be announced. The AI applications, you look at the Microsoft Copilot, there's a whole series of these things anticipated. So users will be coming on the aircraft expecting their personal servants on their devices and so on to help them. They'll not want to lose that. They'll still want to connect to their friends. They'll still want to watch their videos. So it'll just get more and more complex, I think, as we go. Mm-hmm. So traffic management, vast amounts of traffic, but all of which needs to be tailored so that the user will have a good experience for each of the applications.
Mm-hmm. And then from Hughes' perspective, what about the hardware side too? How is that? Do you see that evolving?
Well, I think it's just evolutionary improvements in the performance of the products. Antennas getting better, modems getting better, those sorts of things, having more processing so we can do more with the traffic. Mm-hmm. I think all of those trends will continue.
Mm-hmm. And did you want to add something, Glen?
Yeah, just one other thing. I think when we all think about our experience and sitting down in an aircraft and making that trip, what would we want ultimately in the future? And I think we want the experience that's our personal experience. Mm-hmm. And we want our apps to show up, and we want our streaming partners to be there. And I think for us, our challenge is to create that by integrating the in-flight entertainment platform with the connectivity platform so that we can truly deliver that personalized experience.
Absolutely. As someone with a child, I can tell you that, like, you know, the flight is part of the vacation, right? so we want that vacation to start as soon as we get to the airport, right? So excellent. Well, Glen, Paul, thank you both so much. Let's give Glen and Paul a round of applause here for joining us. We really appreciate you talking to us today. We'll now move on to our opening general session panel, but before we move on, I'd like to take a moment to thank our opening general session supporting sponsor, Thales Alenia Space, a world-leading manufacturer of satellites and ground systems and ground segment that have supported countless applications for government and commercial customers. Thales Alenia Space is a longtime supporter of the Satellite Show, and I'd now like to share this exciting and inspiring video about trust and sustainability, a concern for us all, as we kick off our opening general session panel. Thank you so much, everyone.
Humanity has only had a presence in space for a handful of decades, and space has never been more at the heart of our daily lives. Every day, satellites connect us, breaking barriers of time and distance. Space has always been pioneering. At Thales Alenia Space, we have been part of creating the future of space since the early times, learning from one project to create the next. Now, it's not enough to be pioneering. To adapt to the growing needs and the faster development of technology, we are accelerating innovation, production, and cost efficiency, while always ensuring the quality of our products. What is our secret to stay trustful and sustainable in this changing landscape? We deliver extraordinary satellites for exceptional missions. We are continuously evolving towards new technologies, standards, and business models. Our Space Inspire solution is software-defined, ultra-flexible, and fully reprogrammable in orbit. Embracing the next frontier, we extend to 5G and cloud capabilities from space. We combine high tech with high quality. Every satellite must perform flawlessly in space, respecting rules and environment. We guarantee the reliability of our products with a commitment to investigate, learn, solve, and correct, even in challenging times. We transform and transition, continually evolving production processes and speeding up timelines. We value partnerships and teamwork, which are key to constellations that serve essential purposes, from rescues to data availability. We prioritize trust and sustainability. As precursors from the outset, we acknowledge our responsibility. The technologies we create today will shape how we live tomorrow. Together, let's prepare a sustainable future.
Well, hello everybody, how you all doing? Firstly, I'd like to say a big thank you to Thales Alenia Space for their sponsorship. We really do appreciate your support. We're also doing the Q&A a little bit different this year. I'm sure some of you may have seen it in some of the sessions already. We'll be using the Slido app. So if you want to scan the barcode on the big screens, then this will take you to a place to submit your questions. So you've got plenty of time, get your questions in, and we'll get to them a little bit later. Very quick introductions on the panel. Today we have Adel Al-Salah, the CEO of SES, Eva Bernica, the CEO of the Eutelsat Group, John Gedmark, the CEO of Astranis, Dan Goldberg, the CEO of Telesat, Gwyn Shotwell, President and COO of SpaceX, and Dave Waisgrass, the CEO of Intelsat. So we've got a superstar panel, and we're going to get straight into the questions. David, I'm going to start with you first because you were last time, so I feel it's only fair we get to you first.
I can hardly see you over there.
I know, it's like, get binoculars. You spoke yesterday in the fireside chat a lot about the potential MEO plans, but one of the big questions with Intelsat right now is the talk about consolidation. So what's your view on potential industry consolidation, and what role do you think Intelsat will play, given that right now you just have partnerships in LEO and you're looking to develop something in MEO?
Yeah, so I think I touched on some of this yesterday. I mean, there's kind of two sets of players, right? There's the scale or the legacy players. There's new space players, and then of course there's Starlink, okay? And I think Starlink has done a tremendous job in what I would call disrupting the industry and raising everybody's game here. It got a lot of us thinking about what we needed to do from a capability and technology perspective and what we needed to do from a scale perspective. I think if you look over time, I think there'll be more consolidation in the industry. It will likely cover some of, what I would call, again, the scale players, the companies that have been around for a while, as well as new space players. So I think that will continue. I mean, for Intelsat, we're always looking at ways to, improve our customer delivery, improve our stakeholder value. So at some point in time, that might make sense for us, and I'm sure I'm not the only one up here that would answer the question that way.
Okay, I'm going to now go to Adele. Welcome, Adele, to the satellite industry.
Thank you.
Nice hoodie as well, by the way. I think we'll need an Access Intelligence hoodie next year.
You're getting one, no worries.
Excellent. When we look at recent hires at the CEO position amongst the big operators, EVA is a good example, Rajiv Surya in Inmarsat, within months they were involved in major pieces of consolidation. Is history going to repeat itself?
It may. I don't know. We'll see. Look, I agree with Dave, right? The industry is a little crowded from my perspective as a newcomer. Lots of capacity coming on board. We are in a very good position from a balance sheet perspective, being investment grade and having the ability to invest. So absolutely, we're looking at different options. And it's not, Dave is absolutely right. There are many different options, right? You don't have to think always big. You can look at specialty plays where we need to strengthen or vertical integration. Yeah. So yeah, the opportunities are there.
Okay. Eva, slightly different question for you, and welcome back. You've announced with the Gen 2, the costs between 2025 and 2030 could be around 180 million euros lower than previously forecast. Does this mean a scaling back of ambitions, and what is the status of the Gen 2 decision?
So, well, thank you for the questions, because effectively that is an update since we were here last year. And I think now we are 5-6 months into the merger with OneWeb. We're getting into an integrated organization and also looking at what's the right CapEx plans going forward. And the most important thing for us is really to maintain the continuity for our customers. We have a fairly significant, very significant backlog of over 700 million that keeps on growing. And those customers, of course, I would too if I was a customer, says, this is not going to stop anytime soon because we're going to need capacity over the long term. So how we develop our next gen or Gen 2 is extremely important. And when we want to make sure that we have that continuity, we also need to make sure that we deal with the technology risks that we're seeing in the market. So if we want to bring all the nice gadgets on into our next gen, we might want to do it in a more stepwise approach. Rather than try to get everything on board on a single new platform and do it as a big bang. That is taking too much technology risk. So we want to do it in a more gradual fashion, which actually means that we're probably scaling up our ambitions over time, but in the short term, we're scaling them slightly back simply to manage and be sure that we have that customer continuity, which is so important out there.
Interesting. I'll go to John next. John, welcome to the opening general sessions. Great to have Astranis involved.
Thank you.
This is obviously a critical year for the company with 4 satellite launches planned after the malfunction on your initial satellite. Are you sort of feeling the pressure to prove your satellites and the micro-geo model after the malfunction on your first satellite and the fact that you've had to completely change plans for that satellite?
Well, first a little bit about our company for those that might not be familiar. This is our first time being on this panel, and I'm sure first of many. So I'm John, I'm the co-founder and CEO at Astranis. We build and operate small geo satellites for customers all over the world. We just announced our, I think it was 11th customer yesterday. And we decided to be that both a manufacturer and an operator so that we could be in control of our own technology, be control of our own destiny there. So yeah, we're very excited about this year. This is obviously a big year for us. I guess I would say on Arcturus, we think Arcturus performed extremely well. As a first of its kind, new class of satellite, we learned a lot, and we had a number of systems that went extremely well, are working perfectly. We had a vendor-supplied component that we had challenges with. We learned a lot from that. And now we'll be launching 4 satellites, as you said, on a dedicated Falcon 9 later this year. And then actually another 5 satellites not too long after that. So I think what people will quickly realize with the Astronis model is that it's more than just any one satellite. We're going to launch actually more satellites than the rest of the industry combined over the next couple of years for GEO. So with that kind of production, that kind of new business model, it actually is much more than just one satellite.
No, fantastic, and really applaud the ambition and wish you well with that. Let me go to Gwen next, and welcome back to the opening general session. Doesn't Starlink now have to start competing primarily with terrestrial broadband instead of being a last resort solution if it is to reach this aggressive revenue target of around sort of $10 billion? And will the price of capacity in terminals have to come down further?
So I've always thought that the capability that Starlink has is incredibly complementary to kind of existing big telcos and fiber as well. Starlink is ideally suited for suburban to very rural environments. In fact, I have 5 or 6 of them on my ranch in Central Texas, and we'd be screwed without them, frankly. So at some point there might be some competition, but we're really best served in the rural environments. So that was the second part of your question, and the first part of your question was?
Yeah, about the sort of the 10 billion revenue.
Oh, the revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are lots of people, in fact, a third of the world does not have access to internet, and half of those that do don't have great internet. So I actually see quite a gigantic market, frankly, for all of us up here. And there are a lot of players, but there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room to serve a lot of people. And so, yeah, I don't see the competition having to be fierce with existing telcos. And we will learn about the right kind of packages and services to offer various communities in various countries. But right now, we're selling everything that we can produce as far as user terminals go.
Okay. Dan, nice to see you back again. Telesat had some big news last year, with Lightspeed funding and some update on the plans. Is 198 satellites going to be enough to be a significant global player? And given you are behind schedule, is there not a huge element of catch-up now for Telesat when it comes to gaining customers?
Thanks, Mark. Good to be back. The first part of the question is 198 satellites enough? Certainly to get started with 198 satellites, we'll have terabits and terabits of fully global, highly capable, affordable, secure, resilient broadband connectivity. So yeah, certainly 198 I think gives us a very capable network that will allow us to bring a phenomenal value proposition to the different verticals that we're focused on. Doesn't have to stop at 198. We certainly got the regulatory headroom to grow the constellation significantly from there. But that'll be a function of just, how much the capacity is getting taken up and how much more capacity we need to deploy to meet the market. And then as far as, time to market, I wish that we were rolling out Lightspeed, later this week. We're not. And that's okay. I mean, I agree with Gwen. It's a huge market. It's a huge market today. It's a market that when Lightspeed comes into service a few years from now will be bigger still. when we get there. And yeah, so we're moving forward as quickly as we can. We're keen to bring the constellation online, but I've every confidence when we arrive, there'll be a huge market there for us, and we'll be very successful.
Excellent. Well, we wish you well with that. I want to talk about some market-based questions, because we've seen a number of interesting deals with end users. We've just had Delta on the stage as well. So I want to hear from all of you about the future use cases for satellite, and what markets would you highlight as particularly exciting for your company? So if you could just give me no more than 2 markets that you are particularly excited about. Dan, as you were last, I'm going to go first with you this time.
Okay. Thanks, because we're really only focused on 4 markets, and if I were last, I might not have any markets to talk about. But just quickly, we're focused on enterprise broadband connectivity, and so that's, ISPs and telcos, bringing connectivity back to the internet backhaul, but for enterprises as well. And then it's, for us, what we're focused on, aero, maritime, and government. And so huge markets that are growing very quickly. We're not focused on the consumer broadband market, not serving that market directly. So I'll stop there.
Okay. John?
Oh, sure. Well, we serve customers in all different markets all over the world, but the one we're the most excited about, for sure, is connecting the unconnected, right? The couple billion people, 3-4 billion people, depending on what you count, that are currently without access to broadband internet. They are, I think by definition, the people that we have failed to reach with fiber. We can only reach them with satellite. And I think at the right price point, not old price points from a decade ago, but new price points that are now possible with new technology, the demand is effectively unlimited. There's no ceiling to how much capacity people will consume. I think we've seen that in the Western world, and now we're going to see that play out, real elasticity of demand there as we get more people online.
Okay. Adele?
Government, I would say, is a really important market for us, especially with geopolitical dynamics in the world and the push for all governments across the world, especially Europe, US, for sovereign secure solutions. That's a big market for all of us, as a matter of fact. Enterprise and cloud, big opportunity as customers move to the cloud and look for resilience and assurances of quality of connectivity, especially when connectivity becomes critical. And for sure, aero and maritime, right? So these are key markets for us.
Okay. I think we mentioned most of the markets, so I'll probably dive into a few real use cases, because I think what's unique around Eutelsat Group is the GEO-LEO combination. It's combining the best of both worlds and giving that resilience. And that plays strongly into quite a few use cases. Government is one of them, as Estelle was saying. But I think we're also seeing products like the mobile backhaul, which is enabling telcos and enabling the telco world to actually get further out and have a shared resources even further out than what was previously done with in the rollout with Telstra in Australia. There's an obvious market for that. But it's also clear that the same thing is true for the mobility market, which is coming back strongly as well.
Okay. Gwen?
We've probably covered most of them here, actually. Maybe I'll go a little bit further out. We are going to roll out a capability, we call it plug and placer, basically commercialize our lasers to basically put on other satellites. Systems. So I think that's pretty exciting. We'll roll that out actually with our new Polaris Dawn mission coming up here this summer on a Dragon capsule. So we'll connect Dragon to the internet, which would be pretty great. And then you asked what we're most excited about, and I'm really looking forward to having communications to bases on the moon and a Starlink around Mars.
Fantastic.
So what market has not been talked about?
Mars.
So for Mars,
Jupiter.
That's true, and Jupiter. For us, our primary growth platforms are commercial aviation, and I would say mobility more broadly, think business aviation. Then there's new markets that we're getting into, agriculture, construction, and mining. So in the intermediate term, we're seeing real opportunity there as well. And I'll repeat what some of my friends have said here. The opportunity from a government perspective, I would say in the United States here, but even more broadly, is enormous, and it's both on the military and the civilian side.
Okay. We often talk about new verticals. I mean, that's part of the conversation we have often in the industry. We've seen obviously Starlink do the deal with John Deere in recent times. When are we going to see further inroads into some of the land mobility sectors, such as agriculture, mining, construction? Because obviously this is a big talking point in the industry right now. Congratulations, Glen, on that deal as well. I know that was a very much talked about deal as well. So, Eva, let me start with you on this one.
Yeah, no, I think land mobility is actually a product we just brought out last month in terms of product into this market, because there is a lot of demand also on land mobility, and I think that is a sector where we'll start seeing many more use cases as the agricultural with John Deere, but there are many others. I think anybody who has been pressured by their teenage kids to take a train will want better connectivity there as well. So I think that's also a great market, and of course all the automotive sector.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that obviously it has started, and congratulations on John Deere. That, I think, set the platform not only domestically but globally, and certainly has a lot of OEMs, blue chip OEMs around the world, very focused on what's going on. In fact, we have a pilot program going on with a major OEM. I'm not going to get more specific than that. And we have others that are about to start. Our pipeline is continuing to build. So if you're asking for a time frame, I would say it's already started, part one. And part two is it really becomes a growth platform for not only us, but for other companies in intermediate term, 2, 3, 4 years from now. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I? No, Gwen, you.
No, you go.
Okay,
One of you.
I'll go ahead then. For me, like a useful way to think about this is to look at maybe what's inhibited kind of more widespread adoption of satellite for these different applications, and when I look at maybe what's been holding some of that back, it's all changing right now. I think those applications need, a lot of them, smaller user terminals that are easy to deploy and that are cheap. They need low latency, oftentimes, because a lot of these applications just demand that. As things move more and more to the cloud, and you've got more and more of these connected, sort of autonomous platforms, these are all the drivers. And so if there hasn't been greater adoption in the past, I think a lot of it's been held back by the absence of some of those things. But those things are getting solved right now, and the really interesting contract that Gwen and her team won with John Deere, I think, kind of underscores all of that. There was a need that John Deere and its customers have to connect up all those different vehicles and platforms. Starlink came along and has this, highly ubiquitous, low latency platform that can accommodate the smaller user terminal. And so you put all that together, and I think it's just going to be kind of a domino effect. You're just going to see more and more of this.
I do think there's a consumer play here too, and Starlink was generated primarily for consumers. In fact, we rolled out an RV platform, which is really popular, and I think we'll see more of that on the consumer side, not just enterprise, big enterprise.
Can I add two more?
Sure, yeah, then Adele, then John, yeah.
Yeah. A couple of other things that, without repeating what the team has talked about. So first of all, within the media business, which is under pressure, as we all know, there are some really interesting segments that are emerging for us. Sports and events being an important segment. We've been behind the NFL distribution. Super Bowl, it was, one of the highest viewed distributed content. And we're seeing more and more of that within that segment. The other thing that we're really excited about is interlinks between satellites, different constellations. that opens up a whole new area for big data. Right? And we've been able to demonstrate with Planet Labs ability to take their data into a MEO constellation and delivering it down to Earth real time. Right? It changes the game, right? Versus what the Earth observation folks are able to do today. So those are exciting new spaces that we're seeing.
John?
Yeah, I would say two things. On the land mobility side, so we're a Silicon Valley company. I know a lot of companies doing autonomous vehicles of different types. And if you talk to the people developing those vehicles, the amount of data they would ideally like to be able to get back continuously is just massive, right? The more training data they get as those vehicles are out, accumulating miles on the road, the more they can train their models and the better that AI all becomes. They just haven't been able to do that because the connectivity hasn't been there once you get outside of the major metropolitan areas. So I think that's an enormous source of demand, but again, it's going to be only at the right price point. You asked when we would see some of these things maybe on the industrial side, mining and energy. We're already seeing them. A couple customers there that I'm not ready to talk about yet, but what we're seeing is a real interest, and maybe this is a little bit unique to Astranis, in dedicated networks, right? So this is something we can do with a small satellite, dedicated satellite for a particular customer, from a security perspective, from a reliability perspective, knowing that this network is fully theirs and is actually self-contained in a way that is firewalled off from the internet and all of the bad actors that are out there. So yeah, we're seeing some very interesting new applications start to pop up now.
Interesting. I want to follow up a little bit on the John Deere deal and get a perspective probably from the non-SpaceX people on this. I mean, a few years ago, that kind of deal would have gone to one of the big traditional operators, and we're seeing SpaceX more and more get deals that were previously the domain of SES, Eutelsat, Intelsat, Telesat. Is there not a concern, about the inroads SpaceX is making, but you just really can't compete right now against SpaceX effectively in these sort of new customer areas?
Well, first of all, I think it was a great deal. And I think Dave mentioned it. It opens up thinking for other applications, and congratulations. I don't know the details of it, but I've read about it. It's typically for SES, it's not the type of deal we would focus on, right? We would focus more on enterprise type of solutions that require cloud connectivity, that people are moving faster into the cloud, et cetera, right? But I think it opens our eyes, right, to an opportunity like that, and whether or not we can provide solutions. I think we can compete with Starlink. Mm-hmm. I don't think there is a one solution that fits everybody, mm-hmm. which is why we're thinking of ourselves as not a multi-orbit providers, but an all-orbit providers, right? We have GEO, we have MEO, we're investing in both and replacing some of the critical GEO satellites, we're investing in MEO, and we're partnering in LEO, right? So we have multiple solutions going together that we've sold to our customers. So I think it's specifically about what application are you trying to solve for? And then you have to create the type of solution that combines your capabilities.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things going on, at least from our perspective. One is, and I agree with Adele, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So what we're doing, and again, I'm sure we're not the only ones doing this, but what we're executing, and I'm very pleased with our pace of play here, is a terminal strategy that basically will make us very competitive in all of these markets that we are targeting, specifically land mobility. We are invested and co-developing everything from low-end terminals, let's call it low-end, very inexpensive terminals, to very high-end, very powerful terminals. And sort of, let's call it sort of everything in between. There's two companies we're working with there. We think that's going to definitely help jumpstart what we're trying to do in land mobility. And then the second part is we're finding that there is a lot of interest and demand for multi-orbit capabilities. And we're partnered very closely with OneWeb, and in these offerings, we're going forward with multi-orbit solutions, and we think that's going to resonate very well.
So, and I think the land mobility and the John Deere deal is, to a very large extent, simply opening a market that probably wasn't there a couple of years ago. And Dan was talking a little bit about it. Some of the barriers were terminal size, form factor, price, et cetera. So it's about opening all markets. And when you think about it, we've been spending quite a lot of the industry's time until now on connecting people, connecting individuals via phone. But if you start thinking about the John Deere and connecting devices, whether it's in the agricultural sector, whether it will be, cars are getting more and more connected and using satellite connectivity for much more connecting devices. One thing we see is in the commercial maritime. They want to try to start taking off, employees and people on the boats, both for security, but also for effectiveness and cost reasons. I think you can start seeing some of the same things in the cockpits and the aero. If you start thinking about how you digitalize the operating of devices to a much larger extent, let's start with the tractors out in the fields where, I think we get our arms around it. But when you think about connecting devices in a much larger extent, we've just started. So this is a market which has been started now, which is going to be massive, and which was probably not as well served with other technologies, and the technology is simply getting there.
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in on this too, particularly because Gwen's not allowed to say anything right now. Starlink has been disruptive, and Dave kind of started with that. I think on the one hand, they're growing the market, and John Deere is probably a great example of that. But they're also cannibalizing some of the business that the traditional satellite operators have been engaged with for some time. For us at Telesat, watching the success that Starlink has had in the market kind of validated the reason why we got on this LEO path a few years ago in the first place, which is to say that it just became evident to us that our customers were wanting a lot of the things that Starlink is delivering right now, and I've touched on some of those, but it's low latency services with a more distributed network and more affordable bandwidth prices and a smaller form factor in terms of the user terminal that's easier to deploy and easier to ship around the world. And so for me, I don't know, an answer to the question like, what's the play to make sure that we can continue to provide the right solution set for the customers that we're focused on. That's why we're moving forward with our Lightspeed constellation. It's to bring that very same value proposition to the market. I think that Starlink is going to continue to be successful, serving a whole lot of customers out there. I suspect Kuiper will be as well. But I'm also convinced that the market is large, it's growing fast, and customers tend to want a diversity of suppliers. Telesat isn't aspiring to, capture 80% of the market. I doubt that Starlink is either, but it's a huge market, and I think a lot of us can do great business out there and provide great service and achieve good returns for our shareholders as this market continues to grow.
Fantastic. No, appreciate all of those responses. We've got lots of audience questions already, so I'm going to go straight into some of these questions. I'm going to start with one with you, Gwen, because I kind of left you out of that last one. But we have a nice question for you here. The question was firstly congratulating you on the Starship 3 and the success of Starlink for the world community. And then the question asks, is SpaceX on track to spin off Starlink publicly in the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, so my CFO is going to be on a panel later today. I'll let him answer that in detail, but I could say that we are not focused on an IPO for Starlink right now. We're really focused on growth, getting the network right. We're not achieving the latencies that physics would allow us to do. So we're really going to focus on the product and the service for now, and then we'll consider something in the future possibly.
Okay. We've got a couple of questions related to China, so I'm going to ask a question here and get your thoughts on this. What will be the impact of the Chinese Guo-Wang system? What will the impact be if this gets fielded? So any thoughts on this one?
If it gets fielded?
I guess if it gets built and...
If it gets launched and
launched,
in operation.
Deployed.
You are the veterans.
No, I'd give it a try. I think as in many other large infrastructure projects, and especially digital projects, I think it would be more than natural that we'd see China entering on that space. It's been an area they've invested massively in, and I think it would be very surprising not to see a significant Chinese constellation up there. Then everybody's wild guess on where geopolitics is going to take us over the next couple of years. We have election going on in, I don't know, more than a third of the world this year. So geopolitics will definitely, and it's always been, and I think increasingly so, a big element of this sector. So there'll be countries who work very intensely with Chinese infrastructure investments across the world. There'll be other countries that shy away from it and say, we want to have a different sovereign solution. And I think you talked about it, Abdel, sovereignty and thinking about what does that actually mean in a time of crisis. I think that's something we've all learned to think about over the last couple of years. At least I had to learn how to spell it. So I think that is something that's here to stay. But of course, the Chinese are going to be on the scene as well. And then I think it comes to a little bit of international regulation and dialogue, and I think that's an important element because space is a shared resources, and it comes down to some of the bigger global themes about regulatory themes. It might be sustainability in space as well. There, I think we need to open a door for a dialogue.
Okay.
It is critical, by the way, as more satellites are being launched, is to communicate with transparency. I think that's the most important thing to avoid a real issue in space.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, just speaking as a U.S. company, but I think maybe it goes the same for all of the Western headquartered companies on this stage. I think we do want to make sure that countries around the world are working with Western partners and U.S. partners wherever we can. Just as we don't want to see Huawei get entrenched in a lot of these countries and have them get pulled further and closer to China over the years to come. I think we have a real opportunity to help provide this broadband connectivity that all these countries want and need, and do that with the Western solution, and I think we should.
Okay. John, I'm going to stick with you for the next question. We have an Astranis question for you. The question is, Astranis is manufacturer and operator of the GEO micro satellites. Who is the owner of the satellite, and could you present more details about that?
Yeah, we are the owner-operators of our satellites. Yeah. And as I said earlier, we decided to be this combined company, if you will, of manufacturing our own satellites while owning and operating them and providing this as a service because we just believe the technology is so key, right? It's just so critical that we have this constant iteration on the technology, constantly improving and constantly driving down this dollar per megabit per second that our customers need. As I said, I think the demand at these lower price points is effectively unlimited. We're already seeing that now in some of the projects we're working on in more developing countries around the world, and we want to take the price even further, even lower. It's the only way to really untap, get at all this untapped demand in the couple billion people that are without internet. So we're very focused on that. It's harder, obviously, to be manufacturing spacecraft, and space is hard, and that makes for a very, I guess, a challenging company to run, but it's worth it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Gwen, I have another question for you. What is the latest on the Starship Flight 3 launch last week, and do you plan to launch Starlink satellites on Flight 4?
So we're still going through the data. The team got to take the weekend off, which they deserved. We're still going through the data. It was an incredibly successful flight, obviously. We hit exactly where we wanted to go. It was not an orbital flight with purpose. We wanted to make sure we could passively come back on a trajectory that we could count on if we didn't relight the second stage engine a second time, basically, to re-enter. But boost stage was beautiful. In fact, we got the relight of the booster engines to come back. We didn't complete that part of the phase either, but ascent phase was beautiful for both stages. And then we'll figure out what happened on both stages as well and get back to flight, hopefully in about 6 weeks, flight 4, hopefully, at the beginning part of May. And I don't think we're going to deploy satellites on the next flight. Things are still in trade, but I think we're really going to focus on getting re-entry right and making sure we can land these things where we want to land them successfully.
Okay, great. I'm going to question for the more traditional geo players here. We have a question, an interesting one actually, and touched upon it a little bit earlier. What do you see as the top 3 applications for a geo satellite 10 years from now? Dan, I'm going to start with you with this one.
Okay. Top 3, I'll give a top 1, and then I'll turn to my geo.
Okay, if you can give us one then.
Compatriots up here. So video distribution. I mean, satellite, geostationary satellites have always had a massive competitive advantage in terms of point to multi-point video distribution, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And so I think, the industry will change, consumer patterns will change and whatnot, but for the foreseeable future, there will still be millions and millions of households around the world that receive, traditional linear video in a point to multi-point kind of way, and geostationary satellites are phenomenal for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that as one point. In fact, we recently won a contract, which we'll be announcing here in the next couple of months, to consolidate content from our satellites, basically through our teleports, move it on to the cloud for distribution via streaming. So this whole media market is developing and advancing and is going to evolve, I think, in a positive way over time. But other key applications for GEO would be aviation in general, think commercial aviation and business aviation. And most definitely, there's a multitude of government applications that are in place today, and I see those growing as well over time.
And just to add to that, Mark, Dan is right. I mean, there are not only millions of people, there are billions of people on Earth that need that video distribution, right? That there's just not a clear solution for the next 10, 15, 20 years. No doubt streaming is gaining momentum, but the most economic and the most reliable distribution remains GEOs. But also it's important not to think about GEOs the way they are today. GEOs technology is evolving as well. We have 3 GEOs that will be launching in the next couple of years, and they're fully software-defined flexible satellites. We can move them around the globe when people need them or missions need them, et cetera. So I'm not sure GEOs are going to go away. I think the technology itself will even improve them further.
If I just were to add, because I agree, video is just a very effective way of getting broadcasting and content out to many, and that will evolve. There's lots of innovation going on in that space, as Dan was pointing to. But I also think that when you look at connectivity, and at least when you connect people, there's a huge amount of that connectivity in terms of the capacity demand that goes to content download. And when the combination of LEO and GEO in there is extremely powerful, because you don't necessarily need that super low latency for your latest YouTube or Netflix download when you're binging over a weekend. There, GEO is just a very effective way of responding to the peaks. So we firmly believe in this multi-orbit that if you can route the latency sensitive into the LEO network and use that to the largest extent to give people that great browsing or gaming experience, But when you hit a Netflix or that, you can actually overlay it with geo and download it that way. And I think that will be, if it's exactly in 10 years, before or after, but I think that's going to be a massive part of it, that distribution of content, whether it's over an IP or whether it's over a video innovative solution in terms of streaming. I think that's going to be a big part, because I think if you look back, that's what really have driven the hunger for connectivity demand, has been a lot of that content downstream.
Okay.
On video, I disagree. Sorry.
That's good.
We're talking about 2030. I mean, again, I would say connecting the unconnected, multiple billions of people that want broadband internet access. I mean, that has to be the biggest market. That has to be number one. Industrial and enterprise applications, I think, like we talked about a little bit earlier, and also the U.S. government. I think the U.S. government has now really started to realize, the U.S. military, the benefits of having just so much broadband data available at all times, and all the applications that enables, from having all their sensors and all of the comms that's enabled, and I think they realize that they need to spool up given the geopolitical situation. So I would put those at the top three.
Can I say also, Mark, it's not the question you asked, but almost implicit in it is like a thesis that geo is going to, over time, become marginalized. And I do believe that there are some use cases where geo will still be prevalent, well into the future. But for sure, I believe that LEO is ascendant, and that the things in our industry that are driving demand the fastest, and John mentioned connecting the unconnected and just kind of broadband connectivity more broadly, I think that just will migrate over time to LEO constellations. I just think that the overall service features that you can deliver, it's what the customers want. The technology allows it today, and you see it already going in that direction, I think. And I think that as the satellite technology gets better, as the user terminal technology gets better, as Starship gets cranked up and you can put more and more of these satellites up there, I just think the winds are blowing, on the back of the LEO architecture. I mean, we're certainly going in that direction, and I think that, I think if we're all here 10 years from now and we look back, LEO will absolutely be ascendant.
Well, Dan, I'm sure you'll be here 10 years from now, because you're like the one
constant
on this. You're the one constant on this panel.
Sorry, I just want to say I respectfully disagree. What we found is, with the right technology, you can get the lowest cost with the geo solution. That is what we found. We've almost sold out our production capability for the next couple of years, as our customers have discovered that as well. And I think it's all about the technology. Of course, if you're talking about old analog bent pipe transponders, no, that's not going to cut it. There's no way. But if you have the right technology, and it's technology and economies of scale, right? To meet the demand that we see with the customers we're talking to, I mean, literally just today, we need to deploy hundreds of our satellites in geo. But the demand is there, again, at the right price point, which I think we're able to meet, because we've been working so hard for, the company's been around for 8 years now, working so hard for the last 8 years on the core technology that makes a difference. So I disagree. LEO, of course, is ascendant, and that's great. And we see demand for all of the above. I mean, you just can put as many things in the sky as you can. And I mean, we strongly agree with SpaceX on this. We just have to put as many things in the sky as we can, and we're still only going to make a dent in that demand. It's just too much demand across all the billions of people that don't have internet today.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more audience question, and then we're going to run a video, and then we're going to go to a final question. try and get a very quick answer to this one if I can. We had a question, I thought this was an interesting question about game-changing AI applications that you are pursuing. Obviously, this has been a big talking point. We had a big panel on AI yesterday. Anything that you're doing involving AI that you'd very quickly like to?
Huge, yeah. We're focused on AI to improve our internal operations.
Yeah.
That's our biggest focus right now.
Yeah, look, for us, there's a couple things. We've talked about MEO, right? So it's not only constellation orchestration, but beam orchestration with respect to the software-defined satellites that we'll be putting on orbit in a few years. That's where our focus area is for now, on AI today.
Anyone else?
Yeah, same for us. It's all about, leveraging AI to make our Lightspeed constellation, which is going to have, hundreds of thousands of beams and be routing traffic all over the world with a very comprehensive software system that just drives all of that. Leveraging AI to make it more predictive and more efficient is absolutely the road we're going down.
Yes, and more on the machine learning side. With all the flights that we have, there's always things in the data that a human just cannot get through. So we're continuing to work on the techniques to pour through the data from the many flights that we have, launches that we have, to make sure that we're doing the right thing, improving the vehicle over time, so that ultimately Starship benefits from that, and we will be flying hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people.
Okay, before I get to the final question, and by the way, I want to thank each and every one of the audience that asked questions. We had so many questions, and we could have probably gone on to about midday, but we at least got through some of them. I'd like to thank again Thales Alenia Space for their support once again. Before the final question, let's cue the video once again.
Humanity has only had a presence in space for a handful of decades, and space has never been more at the heart of our daily lives. Every day, satellites connect us, breaking barriers of time and distance. Space has always been pioneering. At Thales Alenia Space, we have been part of creating the future of space since the early times, learning from one project to create the next. Now, it's not enough to be pioneering. To adapt to the growing needs and the faster development of technology, we are accelerating innovation, production, and cost efficiency, while always ensuring the quality of our products. What is our secret to stay trustful and sustainable in this changing landscape? We deliver extraordinary satellites for exceptional missions. We are continuously evolving towards new technologies, standards, and business models. Our Space Inspire solution is software-defined, ultra-flexible, and fully reprogrammable in orbit. Embracing the next frontier, we extend to 5G and cloud capabilities from space. We combine high-tech with high quality. Every satellite must perform flawlessly in space, respecting rules and environment. We guarantee the reliability of our products with a commitment to investigate, learn, solve, and correct, even in challenging times. We transform and transition, continually evolving production processes and speeding up timelines. We value partnerships and teamwork, which are key to constellations that serve essential purposes, from rescues to data availability. We prioritize trust and sustainability. As precursors from the outset, we acknowledge our responsibility. The technologies we create today will shape how we live tomorrow. Together, let's prepare a sustainable future.
Okay, we have time for one final question. When we look across this panel, we are looking at thousands of future satellites going up and other constellations like Project Kuiper in the works as well. Do you genuinely believe there's going to be enough business to sustain the number of players going forward?
Absolutely. Was it John? You talked about that demand, right? That's in front of us. I think there's plenty of space for all constellations, for all orbits, and for players in the market. However, we do need to think about scale, and we need to think about the ability to have the right cost points and ability to get the right solution. So you can't just have abundant of players. There's plenty of demand, but you also need to have the right players in the market.
Agree. I think it's the question I get the absolute least from investors is whether the market is out there and whether the market is growing fast. That is something that everybody's convinced about, that the connectivity market is very high growth, very high demand, and that's not the question. How we then do it in this industry, that's a slightly different question.
Oh, you've already heard me talk about this. I think the demand is there, and it's there in spades, but only at the right price, right? It is not going to be there at the old legacy price points. So it has to be about the technology and how we can drive that price lower and lower over time, and I think we will.
Yep, I agree with all of that. I mean, the reality is our industry is moving quickly. It's highly competitive. The market is huge, but none of us can be complacent, and we all need to innovate. We need to be super focused on what our customers want, and we've got to take risk and invest. And so I think if you get all that right, then then you're in great shape. But it is a big market, and I do think it'll support multiple players so long as they're focused on the customer and innovating along the way.
And focusing on ensuring that we do the best with the resources in space. Space sustainability is an issue. We want to make sure that it remains space remains a resource for all of us to be able to operate in.
Amen.
Yeah, so today there is enormous, and we talked about it earlier, I think Glen mentioned it, enormous unmet demand around the world. So just based on that, you can see where the demand curve is going. You combine that with new technologies that we're talking about today and new technologies that we'll be talking about in 2, 3, 5 years from now, I think the demand curve looks tremendously impressive and will continue to grow.
Okay, and just sort of final question. What would constitute a successful 2024 for your company? So what is your sort of target? If we're here in a year's time, what would you hope to achieve in 2024? We'll go in reverse order this time. So
you're going to start that with me. Okay, great. So we have a number of customer commitments, and we're going to be fielding a number of new capabilities throughout the year. Taken all together, if we hit those marks, we'll consider this a very successful year.
So Falcon's got a huge manifest this year. I hope we fly 148 times. That would be the goal this year, more next year. I'd love to get Starship into orbit, deploying satellites and recovered, both stages, fully recovered, with rapid turnaround on those stages as well. We'd like to double our customer base for Starlink right now. And Dragon. I think we've got 7 Dragon missions, people missions on the manifest this year. It'd be great to get all those off successfully and safely.
At Telesat, it's all about just executing on our Lightspeed program. So we're hiring, some hundreds of people. We're, going to be announcing more suppliers in terms of our supply chain. It's working closely with our prime contractor, MDA, on moving the program forward. It's just, execute. So I'll feel good about 2024 if at the end of the year we can look back and we've made a lot of progress on that.
Yeah, we've got a big launch coming up this summer, so we're obviously very excited about that. I think the biggest thing for us actually is on the production side. We're really working hard right now to scale up our production capability, and that is an enormous challenge. It's a huge amount of work. So if we've really moved the needle on that by the end of the year, I'll be very happy. And then the third thing is we have some, I guess a little bit of a teaser maybe. We have some new technology we've been quietly working on that we'll be announcing quite soon. And so having that, getting to some of our critical milestones on that this year and announcing that is something we're pretty excited about.
Very simple, getting Gen 1 fully done with the last couple of ground stations there, getting our arms well around the next gen and making sure that all our customer has the full visibility of how this successful is going to be continuous over the long term, and then getting our GeoLeo products tested with many more customers. We started it with a few, but really show that that use case is very strong.
We got a couple of very busy years in front of us with a lot of important launches. This year is quite busy. Gwen, thank you very much for your support. But also besides satellite launches and advancement in satellite technology, we're sharpening our focus on our vertical markets. So towards the end of this year, we want to have a lot better ability to deliver the type of support and the type of end-to-end solutions that our clients need.
Okay. Well, we're just about out of time. I think that was a great discussion. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause. And one final thank you to Thales Alenia Space. We hope you enjoy Satellite, and we hope you have a good show. Thank you very much.
Okay, good job.